Welcome back, everybody, from your break. Please make sure, again, that you sign in the chat box with your first and last name and your agency. And I want to welcome everybody back. And right now we have Lori Gumbosh with the ABCs of Movement here to give us some movement and everything else fun with that.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather. Well, I want to say thanks to the EC3 committee for inviting me, and I'm super excited to be here. And I want to just take a second to tell all of you that are on this wonderful conference that I admire and respect everything you do for kids. And it does take a village, and that is what we are. So wonderful, wonderful opportunity. So the learning objectives, we're only going to be doing this for 45 minutes because I know everybody wants to get to lunch at 12:15. So the learning objective is by the end of this session, you will be able to demonstrate how to integrate movement, enhanced learning opportunities into young children's everyday lives. So I am all about movement. I don't know if many of you have ever met me before. I've been around the early childhood scene for a while now. I am actually a school-based physical therapist, and well, I am a retired school-based physical therapist. I recently retired from the schools, and I've been in early childhood in the physical therapy capacity for about 28 years. And so I've worked with neurotypical children and of course with children with special needs. So I'm recently retired from the schools, and I am the creator of the ABCs of Movement. If you've never heard of the ABCs of Movement, today we're going to be doing a few ABC movements, and I'm going to kind of explain how I created the program and why. And they're activity cards that combine movement with learning the alphabet. And I'm also an Ohio approved trainer, step up to quality trainer. I probably have like 15 trainings that I offer. And these are some of my most popular. Yoga for preschool is a big one. The ABCs of Movement. Standards-based movement exploration activities that involves doing activities that are aligned with the standards with things such as scarves and bean bags and hula hoops and things like that. And then the one that I'm probably the most proud of is guiding young children's social emotional learning through movement and more. I presented that at the OAEYC conference a few years back. And I also, it was accepted, and I presented it at the NAEYC, the National Early Childhood Conference, before COVID in Nashville. So that's just a little bit about me. What we're going to talk about, I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to stop sharing, and then we're going to do the movement. So I'm not in a little box. So then I'll be in a bigger box, and then I'll stop sharing I'll share my screen again at the end. So that's sort of my agenda. So the reason why I wanted to share this, I think this is a great slide, and it's from the OT Toolbox. Basically, it's talking about pre-writing skills, because a lot of teachers and administrators feel this pressure to put pencils in little kids' hands, which I don't necessarily agree with. But this is a great way to show how pre-writing skills start in preschool, and it really doesn't have anything with holding a pencil in your hand. So for example, if you start with basic foundational skills like gross motor development, basic gross motor development, all that physical activity is so important in learning how to write. Motor planning, we're going to talk a lot more about that when we do some of the activities, but that's the ability to figure out a new motor task. So when you're young and you're just trying to figure out how to move and how to do motor things like hold a pencil or hold a marker or some scissors or whatever, motor planning is a very big part of that. Initial core strength. Your core is your middle. It's your abdominals, your back, your hips in this area. You have to have a good, strong core in order to be able to write, because if you don't have foundational strength, then it's really hard to try to write on using any kind of implement. Bilateral arm and hand use. You have to be able to use both sides of your body together in a coordinated manner in order to work on pre-writing skills. crossing the midline. The midline is an imaginary line that goes right down the middle of your body, and it cuts you into left and right sides. And what it impacts is both sides of your brain communicating together. So that's so important, especially for a basic foundational skill that kids will build up with for the rest of their academic career. And the last one is imitation of movements. Imitation is so very important. That's why when I did physical therapy with preschoolers and kindergarteners, I would always push into the preschool classroom, and I did an activity with the entire group, because the child that's on my caseload, they learn from imitating their friends and imitating me. And it's such a great learning opportunity. So all children learn by imitation. You can read through this list, and I will provide the PowerPoint, so don't think you have to be writing all this down. But then it gets into more fine motor activities, and then more visual motor. And it just, all of these things really should be worked on, I'm not saying you're not, but they're very important for pre-writing skills. So this is where our paper plates come in handy. If you have two paper plates, wonderful. If you don't, that is okay. You can just use your hands. But I'm going to now lead us in a few movement enhanced learning opportunities using two paper plates. So we're going to talk about those foundational movement concepts first, and then we're going to get the paper plates out. And then I'm going to go right into the ABCs of movement and demonstrate that. So here's my disclaimer. If you do not feel like getting up and moving, or if you have back pain or a sore ankle or anything that would prohibit you from moving and with us, that is a-okay. Feel free. If you want to do some of them, if you want to do them sitting in your chair, that's fine too. You can modify these any way you want. You don't have to do them, but I would really love it if you would do them with us. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Everybody, I'd recommend going up into your upper right-hand corner to your view and change it to speaker view so that Lori will be big in your screen so you can see her.
There you go. Thank you, Heather. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of back up a little bit. So those foundational skills that I want to talk about, the first one is motor planning. And motor planning kind of sounds like a weird therapy term, and I'm sorry about that. But motor planning is the ability to figure out a new motor task. So for example, if you're 3 years old, 4 years old, and you're learning how to gallop for the first time, some kids just gallop. The kids that I work with, children with special needs that have gross motor difficulties, they kind of have to be taught how to gallop, because like the motor plan of galloping is, okay, you have one leg in front of the other, and you can't, the lead leg is the front leg, the following leg can't go past it. You turn your body to face, you step together like that. And that is the motor plan. You have to do it over and over and over again in order to get it. So to put it in adult perspective, let's do a motor planning activity. Okay, so what I would like you to do is take one hand and just go side to side like this, like you're waving. Okay, so you're going like this, side to side. Okay, so once you get that down, then go up and down with the other hand. Up and down, side to side. Up and down, side to side. Up and down, side to side. Okay. Sometimes that's tricky for people. Let's try the other way, because sometimes you're better with one side than the other. So let's go side to side. Okay. Once you get that down, then go up and down, side to side, up and down, side to side. Now that is, if it was difficult for you, that's okay, because it's a new motor plan. You've never really, you don't go around doing that all day, right? So it's a new motor plan. So that kind of shows you just how, like, what is motor planning all about, kind of. So that's motor planning. The next one that I wanted to talk about, and that we're going to be using paper plates with, is, I mentioned it quickly, crossing the midline. The midline is an imaginary line that goes right down the middle, and it cuts you into left and right sides. You have to be able to cross the midline when you're using a writing implement and you're coloring across the page, or if you're writing because you're going from left to right. Your eyes have to cross the midline when you're reading, because you go from left to right when you read. And that's a coordinated effort of, working your brain and your body together to cross that midline. The next one another foundational skill that's super important is bilateral coordination. And bilateral coordination is using both sides of your body together in a coordinated manner. So when you're like catching a ball, that's an example of symmetrical bilateral coordination. You're catching a ball, or you're turning a ball, or you're twisting it, or you're throwing it. There's also asymmetrical bilateral coordination when you hold onto paper and you cut with scissors, because you're doing a task and it's using both hands. Because if you're not holding on the paper and you're just trying to cut with scissors, then that's, could kind of be a recipe for disaster. So that's just a couple examples of bilateral coordination. Strength is very important. Don't get me started like, oh, kids aren't as strong as they used to be, and because they're not. But they have to have sufficient strength to be able to sit upright in a chair or sit on the floor, and not be laying all over the place and kind of being in a spot. Remember, we were talking about that core strength earlier. So that's important with the core strength. And then the last foundational skill that I'm going to work on, or I feel that's very important, is balance. So children have to be able to balance, either standing on one foot, standing in tandem with one foot in front of the other. So balancing skills, and you have to have a good, strong core when you're working on balance as well. So those are some foundational movement skills that we're going to use 2 paper plates to work on. So here's my low tech 2 paper plate activity. So I actually have a document that's called 14 early learning activities you can do with just 2 paper plates. And I'll share where you can get that in a couple minutes. But the first one we're going to do is we're just going to clap. Okay, so I'm going to back up a little bit, and because I'm going to stand. If you want to sit, you can sit, but there's going to be some standing ones. So we're just going to take our paper plates and we're just going to clap. And I often, when we clap, like we're just right in front, and we're going to, we can count to 10, like 10 times, or whatever number you're working on in your classroom. Like 10 is just a nice number that I often work on. So we're just like right in the middle clapping. And you might think, this is so basic. It is basic, but kids really need to get these basics down. And then you can also, depending on who you're working with or your clients or the parents, you can kind of jazz it up a little bit. You can clap overhead. So you're working on those directional concepts. So we're clapping over our head, and your arms are really straight. And then you can count 10 times. And then you can clap down low, like kind of squat down. So when you're squatting, you're actually working on your quadricep muscles, the muscles on the front of your legs. And so you're working on your strength. You can also go to the one side. So let's clap the one side. You could say it's to the right or the left, that's fine. And then let's clap to the other side. Very good. Then if you have children that are a little bit older that need some more challenges, you can clap and march at the same time. And it's so interesting because when I was playing or doing my therapy, and I would bring the musical instruments out and we were marching around the room, it's just so interesting to see how kids have a hard time doing something with their arms and their legs at the same time. And then if you have those really, really good coordinated kids, you can go under your legs, like lift up one leg. Whew, I lost my balance there. Be careful, friends. Under your leg, and you can count. Under your leg. Okay, so that's just clapping, just basic clapping. And you're working on bilateral coordination. And then when we were going like this, we were working on crossing the midline, right? My one arm crosses over. When we were squatting, we were working on strength. So it's a lot of things that we're working on at the same time. Another thing to do with paper plates for bilateral coordination is we can fly. So I'd like you to fly like birds, the beautiful birds you are. Now, if you want to just stand right where you're at, you can stand, or if you want to fly around the room, or even if you want to pretend you're a butterfly and not necessarily a bird. I didn't say you had to be a bird. And you could make really big movements with your arms, or you could do little movements with your arms. But I try to do a lot of times when I'm working on these physical activities and the gross motor skills is I work on a lot of other concepts. Remember, where there's no silos, right? So we do, we're flying around, and then when we're done, each child shares what they were, like what kind of bird you were, or what kind of animal you were that you were flying around. Some of the children, a lot of the children that I see for physical therapy also need speech and language therapy. And so sometimes they just say bird, which is fine. Some other children might say, yeah, I was an eagle, or yep, I was a butterfly, or I was a little hummingbird. So you can go, oh, okay, you were a little hummingbird. So getting that vocabulary while you're moving is all kindergarten readiness. It's all early learning. Next thing is swimming. Okay, so let's go swimming. Let's go swimming. Yeah, I know music and movement work really well together, but it's really hard to coordinate the music on Zoom. So you have to listen to me sing some Lori Bertner songs. Okay, so this is a good way to swim. What's another way? Oh yeah, we can swim like this, right? We can swim this way. And the really nice thing about, let's do some backstrokes, things like that involve big arm movements like this, that it really gets your shoulder blades moving and rotating. And that's very important for stability in your shoulder, which will lead to stability in your elbow, which will lead to stability in your wrist, which will lead to stability in your fingers, which will help you with early pre-writing. Or let's go this way now. I love these because, I'm 59 and a half years old and I got creaky bones, and this just feels so good when I move around like that. Okay, wonderful. Let's come to the next one. After arm circles, next one's arm circles. So arm circles are just out like this. And I always start like this with tiny little arm circles. And I make a weird voice and they all just crack up. And then medium-sized arm circles. And then giant, humongous arm circles. Did you hear that vocabulary? You got to get that vocabulary in for those kids. Giant. Oh, and I can just feel my bones cracking, but it feels so good. And then we can go back to medium-sized arm circles and then finish with tiny little arm circles. Okay, so those were 4 really good bilateral coordination activities. We were doing symmetrical bilateral coordination, right? So the next one that we're going to do is, let's see, driving a car. Put both of your paper plates together. And again, this is bilateral coordination too, because you're using both hands. And you're going to just turn your paper plates like this. And we're driving. Okay. So then if you want, you can drive around your area. And I often have the kids just drive, kind of randomly around the carpeted area that we're at. And I'll say, make sure you're driving at a good speed. So you're not speeding. You don't want to hurt your friends. So we're driving, and then you can go beep, beep, and they can drive some more. I've done this also with kids like in a line, like they would be like kind of like in a single file line, like they're on the freeway and they're driving. And then I will go really slow, and they have to go really slow when they drive. And then I go a regular pace. And then I go, a little bit faster, a little bit faster, a little bit faster. And then we'll go back to on the regular pace. And then really slow. I have even made little, like with paper plates and popsicle sticks, like little colored plates. So like red and yellow and green. And I would have them driving around, and then I would ring my bell. So they have to use their auditory input, and then they'd have to look and see what I was holding up. So if I was holding up the red, they would have to stop. And then I ring it again, and then I'll maybe hold up the green, and then they go again. So that's just another way. And I failed to mention that if you want to incorporate fine motor into the paper plate activities, you can always have the children coloring the paper plates before they use them. coloring is such an amazing fine motor activity. So good for early writing, because when you're first starting off, there's big movements like this, because again, you're working on the shoulder. And then when you get better, it's more, you're working at the elbow. And then when you get better, it's working at like you're coloring with the wrist. And then by the time you get down to fingers, then you're kind of going like this. But then you coordinate the fingers, that's when, really good coloring comes into play. You need to start early with the big movements, because you can't refine those movements if you don't start with the big movements. So that's my soapbox on coloring that you probably all already know, but it's always good to hear. So the next one we're going to do after driving a car is we're going to do some balancing. So we're going to take your paper plates, and you can put your paper plates together, like when we were doing the car. And then I say a body part, and I want you to balance the paper plate to the best of your ability on that body part. Okay, ready? So we're going to balance the paper plates on our hand, and we're going to have it extended out. Like, here you go. There you go. Very good. And then we're going to balance the paper plate on our head. And this is easier if you turn the paper plates over like that. So balance the paper plate on your head. Very good. Now, if you are working with a little bit older children, they'll be like, oh, this is too easy. So then to make it harder, you can have them try to walk around the room by balancing the paper plate, or you can have them try to stand on one foot by balancing the paper plate. Ooh, that's tricky, very tricky. All right, let's try balancing the paper plate on our elbow. And then let's try balancing the paper plates just on our fingertips, just on our fingers. Very good. And again, how about we walk around with our paper plates on our fingers? If I was with a bunch of preschoolers, I would also have them balancing the paper plates on their bellies. And I said, okay, now let's try balancing the paper plates on our bellies. So they're going to try to put them on their bellies and it's not going to stay. So, what do we need to do to put the paper plates on our bellies so they don't fall off? We need to get down like in the crab position, right? And then they can balance the paper plates on their bellies. So it's a little bit of reasoning and thinking along with playing with the paper plates. So the next one after balancing is paper plate clap. This is a tricky one. This is kind of for older kids. So you have the paper plates together and you're going to try to clap without dropping your paper plate. All right. This is a really good bilateral coordination one. Very good. Very good. You guys are rock stars, paper plate clappers. And the last one, there's 14, but we're not going to do all 14. The last one is ice skating. So what you're going to do is you're going to put your paper plates on the ground and you're going to step 1 foot on each of the paper plates and you're going to ice skate around your area. All right. And this is really good for motor planning and for strength because you have to push your legs into the ground in order to keep your feet on the paper plate. And of course, if you wanted to get creative, feel free to do a couple frozen spins, and work on your balance that way too. Very good. Okay. So we're going to go past the paper plates and we're going to go into the ABCs of movement next. So I'm going to demonstrate a few of the ABCs of movement, and I want you to do them along with me. If you've never heard of the ABCs of movement, the fronts of the cards have real pictures of real children doing different developmentally appropriate activities for preschool through kindergarten. And then the backs of the cards have all of the learning activities for the adult who's helping. It could be a teacher, a parent helper, a social worker, anybody. So the first one, so this is Alligator March, okay? And on the backs of the cards, it says, say, ah, ah, A. And that's that phonological awareness. The speech and language pathologists that I know tell me that children actually hear the sound that represents the letter before they actually learn the letter themselves. So I have that phonological piece in there. Tracing the letter A in the air, that's called skywriting, and that's great for kinesthetic learning. There is a rhyming sentence and an alliteration sentence on the back of each of the cards. So the rhyming sentence is march like an alligator to the waiter and do it sooner, not later. And the alliteration is angry alligators march in the alley. You can use those to work on other vocabulary, like with the alliteration sentence, you can say, okay, so what are some other words that start with the sound? And then you could get, some other words, the kids would come up with. And then the next one, it says form an alligator's mouth by holding your arm straight out in front of your body with one hand on top of the other. March forward while opening and closing your mouth. So this is the position. Yep, you're going to go like this. Now, of course, if children are too young or if they have disabilities, this might be enough as opposed to marching around, because this is great for bilateral coordination, but then when you put the marching in, and it's a whole different motor plan. So if you can go ahead and march around your area, and marching is getting your knees up, right? So we're marching like alligators. And I do have a music CD that has all these songs, but again, I'm limited on time and music doesn't work that great on Zoom, but there are some samples on my website. And on the back of the card, there's modifications for each and every one of these cards. So the modification for alligator march would be alligator clap, just like this, or even like this, because alligator march, the whole reason of alligator march is for bilateral coordination. Remember, coordinating both of your arms together. So you can do it like this, or you can do it like this. It doesn't matter. So that's A, that's for alligator march. We're gonna do the next one. Anybody know what this letter is? E, that's right. E is for elephant stomp. So what we're gonna do, I want you to say E, E. Okay, so now we're going to trace. So get your pointer finger out. We're going to trace the letter E. We're going to start at the top. We're going to go down, back up, across, and across. If you do handwriting without tears or some of the other programs, you can say big line down, little line across, whatever terminology you want to use. And the alliteration is enormous elephant stomp elegantly towards the entrance. Can you think of other words that start with the sound? And then you can talk about that. So what we're going to do to elephant stomp, we're going to put our hands together like this. And then we're going to start. We're not going to stomp yet. You want to get them figuring out how to get their elephant trunks side to side. Now, which foundational movement concept are we working on right now? We are working on crossing the midline, remember? So our arms are going side to side. So right now, both sides of our brain are communicating with each other, and they're working on those foundational skills. So let's stomp, okay? Ready? Here we go. Stomp, 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 stomp. Very good. Good job, elephants. I like it how you're stomping so well around your area. All right, let's see what we are at on time. Okay, the next one I'm going to do is the X March. X is for X March, okay? So again, you can say the stuff on the back or you don't have to. So we're not going to go over everything on the back. We are going to do the skywriting. So start at the top and go diagonal and back up and diagonal. And we're going to X march around the room. So when you X march, you're taking your elbow on one hand to your knee on the other, like that. elbow to knee, elbow to knee. Okay, so my Pomeranian is going a little nuts. So if you can't do that, you can go hand to knee, hand to knee. Very good. Okay, you can do that. Continue to do that if you'd like. And I'm going to go let her out real quick. I'll be right back. Keep X marching, friends. Okay, you can stop. Whew. Wonderful, wonderful job. Okay. The other thing that you can do with the ABC cards as far as moving is I've made up a few little games and I'm going to just demonstrate them real quick. We don't have to do those, but like kids love spinners. So I put the ABC, some of the movements on this. This is an Uno spinner that I bought at a garage sale. And so I put them on here and I use Velcro. That way, if I'm working on a specific letter or if I'm working on a specific movement, I can use those. So basically, everyone takes turns spinning the spinner and then they try to identify the letter. It's a K and K is for kangaroo jump. And then I find the K card. And that's K is for kangaroo jump. And then we all jump around the room like kangaroos. Another fun way that I've used the ABCs of movement cards are I've made it a beach ball game. So I wrote some of the movements on a beach ball on different colors. And then we get in a big circle and I toss the beach ball to someone. And then whatever is facing them, they read, like if they know the letter, they can identify it. If they just know the color, that's fine too. So T is for tiptoe. And then we all tiptoe around. And then after that, I toss it to someone else or they toss it to another friend and then they do the same thing. So we go around the circle and everybody gets a turn, identifying if they can, and then leading the group in the activity. And then another activity I've made up is feed the hungry puppy. Okay, so here's some puppy treats and here's my little puppy and he's a pug and he's got, I don't know if you can see, but he's got a magnet on his nose. And so I dumped the magnetic alphabet letters in the bowl. And then everyone takes turns feeding the puppy. Okay, so do you know what letter that is? D, right? Okay. And then we come over here and we find the D card and D is for duck walk. So then we all duck walk. So those are a few of the different ways that I've used the ABCs of movement. You can use them any way you want. They're very, very, you can use them quite a few different ways. Oh, thank you. Puppy feeding idea is cute. Yeah, and they love it when I bring my puppy. And everyone, of course, gets a turn. The last thing that I wanted to demonstrate with the ABCs of movement cards, using the letter A, you can do yoga, ABCs of movement yoga. So like, for example, the A would be alligator breath. So let's all just kind of calm down a little bit and do some alligator breathing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go like this and we're going to inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. And try to do it a little slower. Inhale and exhale. And the goal is, of course, to do it slower and slower. So the ABCs of movement cards, like the A is for alligator breathing. And then the B is like bear crawl. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so you can kind of see what I'm talking about for those. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with my PowerPoint so you can see those. So this is the handout that I had told you about, the 14 early learning activities you can do with just 2 paper plates. And you can find that on my website, abcsofmovement.com, on the blog page, I wrote a bunch of blogs, and this is a free printable. So this is something that you can download and print off, and you have my permission to share it with families, with your students, with parents, with, anybody, because it's just a nice, fun thing to do. And paper plates, a lot of people have paper plates, so it's not a lot of added expense. So again, visit abcsofmovement.com, and then on the blog page, you can find this free printable. So this was the ABCs of Movement. This was the fronts of the cards and the backs of the cards, just to kind of give you a nice visual of that. And this is the yoga ABCs that I was talking about. So we did the alligator breathing, the bear crawl. Bear crawl looks a whole lot like downward facing dog, doesn't it? So that would be a bear hold. So they would get in the bear position and hold it. C would be crab walk, but you could do a crab hold. And that looks a lot like the table pose that's done in yoga. And then D is for duck walk, but rather than duck walk, you could duck squat. And so that's like a chair pose in yoga. So, and remember, when you're doing yoga with young children, it doesn't have to be an exact science. It doesn't have to be perfect poses. It's just a movement experience that they're enjoying and they are, having fun with doing. So this is just a picture of that I took from my website. And these are all of the different active learning activities and ideas that I've come up with using various things. Do you remember the game Lucky Ducks? Everybody, probably has played that once or twice in their life. I've turned that into a movement game. I've done things with hula hoops, the beach ball boogie, which was the beach ball that I talked about, the yoga ABCs, puppies and kitties. It's a Valentine's game. Just any different way to get movement and get all of the other early learning contents in with your movement exploration activities. And I wanted to share this real quick. I have a YouTube channel. It's called ABCs of Movement with Lori. So when COVID hit, I'm like, okay, so I'm going to do some YouTube. And then I would send those out to my students, and then I made them public. And so, anybody can see, but it has a lot to do with some of the blog things, because some people are more visual and they like to see things in action. Like me, I'm like, oh, I don't quite know what you mean, but if you can see a video. So some of the videos are shorter, and then some of them are longer that you can put on, and the children can actually move along with you doing the movement. So I do have a YouTube channel, and I also have a Pinterest page, which I have on Pinterest. I've done a lot of little 1-minute videos, like quick little things like, this is how you do the X march, or, this is, a different thing. So if you're a Pinterest person, you might want to check out ABCs of Movement on Pinterest. The next free resource that I want to talk about is Open Early Childhood Program. So Open is from openphysed.org, and Open was originally designed for physical educators. And about 3 years ago, they got into early childhood. So it was K through 12 for phys ed, and then they got into early childhood. So the whole early childhood program, the focus is providing 60 minutes of daily physical activity experiences, providing content to foster development in 6 movement exploration categories, which are movement concepts, balance, locomotion, manipulatives, health and nutrition, and social and emotional development. And then all of their activities are aligned with Head Start Early Learning Outcome Framework, because Open is a national program, so they couldn't align it with each state, but they aligned it with Head Start because it's a national program. So Open Early Childhood Program, you would go into openphysed.org and you would register as a user, and then all of their resources on like lesson plans are free. So like there is a quick reference card for the ABCs of movement because I sell my cards through their catalog. And so this is like 6 different things you can do using the ABCs of movement cards. And then so they're all kind of, the categories are color coded there. And so like on the other side are the specific activity plans or lesson plans that you can use. And what's really cool is they're customizable. So they come in Word and PDF, so you can make them your own. And, or you can also just use these as a starting place and then just add to it and do, pretty much whatever the students or the children that you're working with really want to do, you can just keep going with it. So each of these 6 categories are designed to you have the children participate for about 10 minutes. So then that gives you your 60 minutes of total accumulated physical activity for the day. So that's a little bit about Open. And then this is just a little bit of contact information. I know I have a really bad habit of talking really, really fast, and I'm sorry about that. But 45 minutes and lots of movement. So again, ABCs of movement, the YouTube, I have Gmail if you want to, send me an email. I'm on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, not that great on that, but Pinterest. And then this is Open Phys Ed. And then US Games is the parent company of Open Phys Ed. So I think I'm a little bit early even. Are there any questions or anything? Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Lori, I'm a fan of Lori, so I put the links to her blog and her paper plate frisbee freebie and your website. I put it in the chat box, and if everyone, I don't know if you know this or not, but when you look at the chat box, there's a little smiley face and then the 3 dots. And if you click on the 3 dots, it says save chat. So if you ever want to save the chat so you can go back to the links for any of these, this is for whenever you do Zoom, it will be helpful. So thank you, Lori. That was just wonderful. So a little information there for the group.
Thank you.
And Lori, if you make sure that I don't remember if you sent me your PowerPoint already or not, but I believe Michelle's going to put all PowerPoints that we have on our website with the interactive agenda and all of that. So they'll have access to that
Yes,
as well.
Okay, certainly. Well, I hope you enjoyed moving and learning with me this morning, and everybody can have a great lunch now.
We did enjoy moving. It's nice to break up everything with some movement learning as well. So thank you so much, Lori. We really appreciated it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We are going to take our lunch break now. Michelle, are you leaving this link open or are you shutting it down?
I'm going to just let it open.
Okay, so the link will be open. You guys can stay in. Lunch is done at 1 o'clock. So again, we have breakouts. So you have the option of choice number 1. So both, excuse me, both sessions this afternoon or right after lunch are panels. So we have some community speakers to talk about the resources that they have. So one session this afternoon, I believe, is called the Ready Family. So that will be a panel of school districts with community resources. And then the other panel is called the Ready Community, and that will be different community providers to tell us about the resources that they can provide to help assist children and families with being ready for school. So you'll have both of those opportunities. Ready Family is in the current link that you're in. Ready Community is in the other one. So if you're hoping, or I'm hoping that you plan to join us in there, make sure you go back to that interactive agenda and click on the other link for the Ready Community panel. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your lunch.
Bye-bye.